Hi everybody, my name is Ashton Alas, and today I am going to be sharing a lesson that I chose to ground in Chapter 3, Teaching and Differentiating Instruction in a Multi-Tiered System of Education. So I currently work as a substitute interventionist in a K-8 school here in Shelby County, where I primarily provide Tier 3 interventions with several resource groups that I meet with in the morning. And I also co-teach in a 5th grade classroom where I provide Tier 2 interventions, and that is through parallel and station teaching. So working directly across these tiers has completely reshaped how I think about instruction, access, and student potential. So in Tier 3, I work with students and resource groups that have goals in math computation and math reasoning. They do have other goals as well in written expression, reading comprehension, basic reading, but for the purpose of this lesson and today's presentation, we are going to be focusing on the mathematical goals that they have. I currently support a student with MMD in my Tier 3 groups, and in my Tier 2 interventions, I have several OHIs, one for autism, one for ADHD, and several ELLs that all are in my 5th grade room. So being in these spaces every day, physically they're working with these, not just reading about it through coursework. It's made one thing super clear, that these students aren't struggling because they don't want to learn or because they just don't care. They're struggling because instruction has not always been designed or given to them in a way that supports them and allows them to truly show their knowledge and what they're picking up. So my goal, and the way I want to frame this presentation, is an example of how we should be planning lessons with MTSS in mind, designing our instruction that supports all of our students, regardless of what tier they're at, because our duty and our responsibility as educators is to meet our kids where they are. So the purpose of the presentation is to walk you through a mock lesson that shows what kind of intentional planning can look like in practice. So Chapter 3, the reason I chose it, the reason it resonates with me so strongly is it focuses on those tiers, and it emphasizes how Tier 1 instruction designed using the UDL, the Universal Design for Learning, and intentional differentiation is the foundation and the basis for an effective MTSS framework. When Tier 1 instruction is inclusive and proactive, we reduce unnecessary movement into Tier 2 and Tier 3. And as someone who works primarily in Tier 3, I see firsthand how powerful early access could have been for so many of these students. Chapter 3 also highlights UDL as a way to remove barriers from the beginning, rather than adding supports after students struggle, asking us to provide multiple means of representation, expression, and engagement. And that mindset directly informs my choice of instructional strategy for today's lesson. I chose to highlight the menu strategy as an example of what high-quality Tier 1 instruction can look like when Chapter 3 principles are put into practice. I am using a 5th grade math context because my experience in the 5th grade math class, and that's really targeting and changing how I view math instruction. So the menu strategy, this lesson is aligning with the Kentucky Standard math.5.mbt.b.5, and it focuses on fluently multiplying multi-digit whole numbers using an algorithm. We are currently working on standard algorithm, 2-digit by 2-digit, and the heart of this lesson isn't the standard itself. It's how my students are engaging with the content, and more importantly, how supported they feel while learning and engaging with this content. The main dish of the menu, or the imperative, is something that all students in the class are going to complete. Solving multi-digit multiplication problems, explaining their reasoning using numbers, words, or models, and this maintains the high expectations and aligning with Tier 1 instruction. The appetizers and the side dishes allow students to deepen their understanding through choice. They can create visual models or write step-by-step explanations or solve real-world problems. Again, their choice. The desserts or optional enrichment push students just a little bit further by asking them to compare strategies, design their own word problems, or they can teach a peer, which it just so happens the culture in my classroom, all my kids, they love each other. So they love anytime they get to do partner work or shelter partners, think pair shares, they would love the teaching a peer. So even though that dessert is optional enrichment, I know my kids, and I know a lot of them would pounce on that option. This menu structure is supporting UDL by offering that multiple means of expression and engagement while still holding everyone to the same learning goal. This strategy matters because of students like Amaya, my MMD. She is a little artist. She is so good at drawing and she is so good at modeling, but she really does struggle with written expression. So this menu would allow her to show her deep understanding without being limited to writing alone. Magali, she is one of my ELLs, and she can decode text, but she's putting so much brain power and energy into decoding that by the time she's done reading, she struggles with comprehension. She can't really comprehend. So pairing visuals with discussion helps her access the math more meaningfully. Matthew, he is my OHI for autism. He understands the content, but motivation is his biggest barrier. So having choice increases his buy-in and willingness to engage, because if he doesn't want to, you telling him and you asking him, it's not going to make that happen. You have to give Matthew a choice. And Alex, my other OHI for ADHD, he wants to skip showing all the work and jump straight to the answer because he knows the answer, and it's just easier to just give the answer rather than going through the procedural steps. And this menu allows him to explain his thinking in alternative ways while still emphasizing reasoning. These are real students that I work with every day, and they are exactly why Chapter 3's emphasis on differentiation and UDL matters. From an RTI perspective, this approach generates rich evidence of learning instead of a single worksheet. I can observe how my students are reasoning, communicating, applying the strategies that we've taught them, and that data directly informs instructional decisions and helps guide teachers in the right direction through lesson planning and classroom management. Who needs more support? Who is ready for additional enrichment? And which strategies seem to be the most effective overall? In my co-teaching role, the menu strategy also supports parallel and station teaching, which is allowing that instruction to stay inclusive while still meeting individual needs. So Chapter 3 is reminding us that collaboration among educators and with families is essential. Instruction that is clear, flexible, and accessible is easier for families to understand and support at home. So to close us out, returning to the heart of Chapter 3 and the heart of why I do this work. MTSS is not about sorting students. They are not just Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. They are Amaya, Magali, Alex, and seeing the impact of missed opportunities, but also seeing and honoring the growth that happens when they finally feel seen and capable and supported. Above all, empathy has to be at the center of your instruction. And every student, regardless of abilities, disabilities, they deserve access to the content. They deserve not only access, but meaningful engagement with the content. And they deserve the chance to grow to the best of their ability. So this menu strategy is just one example of how Chapter 3 comes to life in practice through intentional design, students taking ownership of their learning, and a deep belief in what our students can do when we give them the right supports. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and hope you guys have a great day.